Hello. I know it's been a little bit since I did a commentary video. It's just that the videos I've had in the works, they've been in the works for a while because they're very long. So I decided to just make this video spurred on from a new passion rather than a long-term idea, so I don't go crazy with perfectionism. And the passion I'm speaking of is literature. Also, sorry if I sound stuffy. It's because I am stuffy. Let's get the script. Okay. Ever since I was born, we always start out like this, I've always been an avid reader, but I honestly fell off during elementary school because having to read books outside of an academic setting, it just felt like a huge waste of time. Like, why would I be doing that when I could be, like, playing Roblox? And then middle school came, along with quarantine, and I became obsessed with Harry Potter, of all series. Yeah, those who know. But somehow that was still the only, like, book that I could read during this time. And so once I got past that phase, thank God, I just stopped reading altogether. Going back to middle school in person really just trained me further too, and then it stretched all the way to sophomore year. I did enjoy some stuff we read in school, namely Animal Farm by George Orwell and Shakespeare's Macbeth, but everything beyond that just kind of bored me to death. And honestly, looking back, I can't help but feel like I completely wasted my time. I could have been reading books and like just putting in the effort to find something I would enjoy, but I just decided not to because my attention span couldn't handle any sentence longer than 5 words. Come on, Quinn, lock in. So here I am now. I'm desperately getting back on that grind. I've been reading for fun. I've been subscribing to booktubers, scrolling through book Instagram, and man, does it make me feel smarter than the average person. Because there is no better pride than reading a classic book in a study hall in front of an English teacher. Like, yeah, I'm doing that. I might be a bit of a pick-me, but I wear it with pride. And pride well earned, because it really is important to be reading, especially considering the state of the world and the internet being taken over by AI, which will feed you misinformation. Stop using ChatGPT for your homework, guys. It's really not that difficult. If you're struggling with math, go ask your math teacher. Can we please get serious? So reading is the easiest access that you have to any information, even if you don't think that the information is important to learn. Because do you seriously think that just because a fantasy book is about cool wizards and monsters that it's devoid of any political message? Because you're wrong. If that book ends with the wizard making peace, finding out they weren't actually enemies or something like that, then that's something called a theme, a message, a lesson that's important to learn. And that's partly why books are always going to be inherently political. I mean, why do you think schools and governments in general try to ban specific books? It's because they're teaching lessons that they don't want you to realize, because then you'll be radicalized enough to actually have your own informed opinion. And guess what? That opinion was learned through a cozy romance book. Seriously, from the very moment you can read a single word, you're already too deep to go back. So lock in and take advantage of it! And I know I might sound like a nerd. I also sound like I'm sick. But honestly, I'm starting to accept that part of myself more as time goes on. So let's get back to the subject of reading. Because even if you acknowledge the points that I've been making, you still might not want to get back into books because, well, they're boring to you. And that's an okay stance to have. It's just that I feel like most people with that opinion also just don't have an approach to books that actually fit their situation. If you can't sit down and read a book because you'll feel lonely, get some friends to read a book with you. If you struggle with reading and it frustrates you, listen to an audiobook as you follow along. And if your viewpoint of books is that they're all just boring, lackluster, then just read an exciting children's book instead. And there's nothing wrong with reading the popular TikTok books either. I just personally don't reach for them because I prefer the detailed writing of super old books. But I know that some people might find it convoluted instead, because no matter what series you're reaching for, the fact that you're reaching at all is a way bigger step than most people take. I mean, for some perspective, I just finished reading The Idiot by Dostoevsky, and although I enjoyed the story, it kind of felt like the story was being constantly interrupted by so many random characters with such long, drawn out sequences. Like, I was not enjoying myself reading it. I liked the story, I didn't enjoy reading it though. But to some other person, those drawn out sequences might mean a lot to them. So I guess if you're just looking for my opinion on the subject in general, you could basically stop watching here. It's pretty obvious what I'm trying to say. Get off your ass and go read. Because I'll be Hey guys, what's up? It's Quinn from March, and I'm not sick anymore. But what's more important is that I'm going to be hijacking this video outro from February Quinn to talk about this subject a little more seriously, with a little more insight. Originally, the rest of this video was just me nerding out about my favorite books that I've read, but if you wanted to see me do that, then just go to the comments, or look up my Goodreads account, because honestly I love the Count of Monte Cristo, but the audio that I had recorded talking about it was borderline unintelligible. And I think the topic of reading, especially since this is not my usual topic, deserves a little bit more, elaboration, particularly towards what I said earlier about reading being political and the topic of banning books, because I want to actually correct myself and be a little bit more specific here. I am American. You can't actually ban books in the United States, because literature is protected under the First Amendment, the right to free speech. And so, from an American view, I think the better term that I could have used, and the better term that most people could use, because banning books already means this, but it just gives the wrong idea, was the fact that books are often challenged and restricted instead. Because again, books can't actually be banned in the US. However, they can be challenged and pulled out of schools and libraries, which again is not really banning, but that's still pretty bad, because most of the time books aren't actually being challenged for whatever cover they give it. Explicit content, graphic violence, or unruly language. In reality, they're only being challenged because they're doing what books are meant to do. They're shedding light on serious subjects with a different political stance than whatever organization is trying to tear down. For example, books that are queer, or books that expose the dark history behind America. But I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm the most educated person on this subject. There are countless arguments you could make for and against this kind of topic, and you could find said arguments being portrayed more eloquently by thousands of other people. For example, what if a book is actually inappropriate? Should that be allowed in a high school library? Well, who's to say? Who's to decide what is inappropriate for a 16-year-old? I just think it's important to be aware that this is a thing that's happening, even if you live somewhere that doesn't have this particular issue, or at least to your knowledge. Because if censorship is bad for some people already, and it can possibly get worse, then you need to be interested in reading enough to make that extra step to access the materials that are going to be withheld from you from the surface level. Because again, in America, books can't actually get banned, but if a so-called problematic book is pulled out of your curriculum and you're not someone who reads books unless forced to, then there's a big chance that you are not going to go actively seeking that book out at a different library, and thus you're going to be missing out on some vital information or history or knowledge, and at that point, that's partly on you for being complacent. You are a human. You can make art, and the people that don't care about you, that being the people in power, they want to take that right away from you, and they actively are by funding all this AI insanity that's taking over the world. They are betting on the fact that you are lazy and refusing to get cultured on what humanity really is. Old paintings, old novels, and accurate history that they're going to twist once you willingly become uneducated enough. Because that's really what this is all about. If you let yourself become dumb by refusing to look at the inner workings of any book, or refusing to pick up a book in the first place, then what will you do if there's no longer a choice to be educated?